Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I would first like to thank everybody who has made this school possible. Our trustees, our generous benefactors, our brilliant faculty, our dedicated staff, our friends, our helpers, our loyal alumni, and ultimately our students and you out there, their families and friends. Today, as we celebrate your graduation, I want to discuss some of the challenges that you face as most of you go on to serve the cause of peace and the defense of our civilization. The global strategic environment which you are inheriting is as chaotic as any in modern history. During the Cold War, we faced a truly existential threat from totalitarianism and nuclear annihilation. But today, some threats, such as that of radical Islamist terrorism, are more volatile. Resurgent Russian imperialism threatens the breakup of NATO, and the threats from China, North Korea, and Iran, combined with our own vulnerabilities, are posing dangers of potentially staggering proportions. Our government's response to these threats in recent years, in my view, has been incoherent, weak, and indecisive. It has spent trillions on military operations, and yet radical Islamist terrorism continues to spread. Our graduates know that just killing terrorists will not stop the recruiting of new terrorists, which is a political and an ideological problem. Our students study the arts of statecraft here, and that study has taught them methods of nonviolent conflict, such as political and ideological warfare. They have learned about offensive counterintelligence operations involving the penetration and disruption of terrorist groups from within. They've learned about depriving terrorists of the funds that they need to operate. They've also learned that one must understand the mind and the doctrine of the enemy, which means that one must be unafraid to identify the enemy ideology. This, in turn, requires looking at the world realistically and not as we wish it to be. Fighting a toxic ideology also requires having a positive alternative. And that's why we teach American founding principles and Western moral philosophy that are rare subjects in American academia today. Consider another threat, that from China. Our nation's leadership has wrongly assumed that China's adoption of state capitalism will lead to democratic reforms. Instead, China is using its new wealth in an effort to replace us as the global superpower. Our leaders are silent about China's huge military buildup. You may know a bit about Chinese cyber espionage, the greatest theft of intellectual property in the history of the world. But do you know about the underground Great Wall? Our students do. 3,000 miles of underground tunnels that are concealing China's growing nuclear arsenal. Do you know that China has over 50,000 spies in the United States? Do you know that the Chinese Communist Party has a massive propaganda and covert political influence apparatus here that is designed to distort our perceptions of reality? You can't read the full truth about all of this in the New York Times or the Washington Post. Each of these money-losing newspapers relies on receiving large advertising monies from Beijing's propaganda apparatus to publish a regular China Watch supplement that looks like news. And so those newspapers censor themselves. They cannot publish stories that are offensive to the Beijing regime. And so huge segments of our national leadership are not seeing or facing up to the reality of a rising superpower that is using classic Cold War strategies against our country on a daily basis. There's another critical vulnerability about which nobody speaks, except our Chancellor, Jim Woolsey, from whom we will be hearing presently. Jim is the Paul Revere of our country when it comes to this issue and a number of others. Our electrical grid is hugely vulnerable to cyber attack and to electromagnetic pulse EMP. Recent Russian aggression against Ukraine involved the cyber taking down of part of Ukraine's electric grid. Meanwhile, a nuclear explosion 50 miles up in the atmosphere or solar storm activity can totally destroy our entire electrical grid and the circuits of every car, truck, computer, and electronic device. Russia, China, and North Korea can each perform such an attack. Soon, Iran will have that capability. The Congressional EMP Commission has concluded that such an attack would stop food and water processing and distribution in this country, and up to 90% of our population who are unable to live in pre-electricity conditions could not survive. Where is our national leadership in all of this? Why don't they tell the American people about the full magnitude of these dangers? Why are they shrinking our armed forces to the lowest levels in half a century? Why do they neglect the non-military instruments of power which these graduates have studied here at IWP? Where will we find leaders who have the courage to see the truths about this global strategic environment and then actually do something about it? Well, a big part of the answer is actually here in this little small place. Here among these graduates and their fellow alumni. You may think, how can such a relatively small number of graduates make such a big difference? The answer is that one person can make a difference. The great Russian author Alexander Solzhenitsyn said, "One word of truth outweighs the world." Individual IWP grads, armed with courage and some of the unique knowledge that they acquired at the Institute, their knowledge of statecraft and the realities of the world, these individual graduates have seen the truth, have inserted it into intelligence analyses, have included it in the policy options memoranda, have added it to the speeches of national leaders. Individual IWP grads have taught entire government agencies how to do certain jobs that they forgot how to do because of the loss of institutional memory in those agencies. The crisis of national leadership that we are facing is not simply a matter of professionalism, although it is that in many respects. It concerns also a widespread alienation from America's values, principles, and purposes, and a widespread view that America may even be a malevolent force in the world that must be restrained. This alienation derives from the remarkably prevalent philosophies, particularly on campuses around our country, of multiculturalism, cultural Marxism, and moral relativism. These ideas have now brought important segments of the nation's intelligentsia to be skeptical about Western civilization, to idealize other non-Western cultures, and basically encourage a new Balkanization of this country that is grounded on this fundamental alienation of our own American culture. Too many members of our intelligentsia and governing elite fail to appreciate that for all of America's sins, our country possesses an extraordinary feature of Judeo-Christian civilization, the capacity to acknowledge our failings, to atone for them, and to work to prevent them from recurring. In contrast to most other civilizations, America is the greatest experiment in social, political, and economic self-improvement in world history, and it is based on a key concept. That concept is the recognition of the fallibility of human nature, combined with respect for the dignity of the individual human person that has created our rule of law, our system of separation of powers and checks and balances, structures all designed to protect our society from concentrating power in the hands of a single evildoer or party. Appreciation of the genius of these constitutional arrangements is the foundation of true, morally grounded patriotism, which is the central pillar of the national security posture of the United States. The study of American founding principles encourages this understanding and appreciation. We at IWP teach how to use all the instruments of power. In doing so, we recognize that power, like liberty, can be abused, so power has to be exercised by people of character. True statesmanship is not only a matter of knowledge and skill, it is a matter of wisdom and good character. It means doing the right thing when no one is looking. It involves the cultivation of conscience. It requires the cultivation and mastery over your will and self-control. It requires making wise choices repeatedly so that they become good habits, because the habits you develop become your destiny. Character means cultivating certain virtues such as honesty, reliability, loyalty, and courage. You have to have the courage of your convictions, the courage to see the truth when all about you are willfully blind, and the courage to tell the truth to power. We teach our students that there are two kinds of people: mission-oriented people and careerists, those who are interested solely in power, position, money, glory, and ego satisfaction. We want you graduates to be mission-oriented. Washington is filled with careerists who are ready to risk sacrificing their honor to get ahead. We want you never to sacrifice your honor. And when you develop a reputation for being mission-oriented and for serving a cause higher than yourselves, you will inevitably get ahead in the most honorable way. Humility will keep you focused on the mission. Hubris will derail you from it. And prudence, the essential virtue of statesmanship, will increase the chance of mission success. Prudence enhances one's ability to discern good ends and to achieve them with means that are good. Prudence means applying moral principles to particular situations, and that, in turn, protects you from using ideological, rigid templates that cannot possibly fit every circumstance. With the education that you graduates have received, we expect from you great professional skill in statecraft. But we also expect that you will become true servant leaders, serving your families, your customers, your community, and your country. You are all now part of a family, a network of people dedicated to very high ideals, and we trust that you will strengthen that network and family for the cause of peace, freedom, justice, and security. If you keep true to the principles which you have been exposed to at IWP, you will find some real meaning to your lives, and America and the world will be better places. I've been inspired to see your idealism and seriousness of professional purpose. On the certificates of our valedictorian and salutatorian that we'll be giving out today, it says, per aspera ad astra. It means through hardships to the stars. You've all gone through the hardships of an IWP curriculum, so congratulations on persevering, and God bless you.